Hey everybody, it's Jenna. As the debate roars on about Superman sequels, which I made a video about earlier this week, and certain characters on a certain mural, I cannot wait for the day that we get photos of that released publicly. I want to weigh in on one of the biggest plot points of the movie. The quote-unquote changes to Superman's birth parents, Jor-El and Lara, and the in-universe controversy surrounding their video message to their son. While Kal-El spends years only hearing the first half of the message because the rest was damaged in transit from Krypton to Earth, Lex Luthor and the Engineer are able to recover the second half. To the surprise of Kal-El and the rest of the world, the full message tells him to rule over the weak and susceptible Earthlings of the planet. This then becomes a major inciting element for the rest of the movie, as Superman tries to save the day while being viewed negatively by the general public, and also grapples with the different intents behind his Kryptonian and human roots. I will admit, upon first watch, I was genuinely surprised by this storyline, both because it was kept a secret from any of the marketing and chatter about the movie, and because it put the word harem into a 4-quadrant blockbuster multiple times. I think the conversation around it in relation to Superman as an immigration allegory is really interesting and complex, and one that I do not feel adequately equipped to weigh in on myself, but I do appreciate that there's so much nuance to be found in this storyline. First off, there's the small possibility that the message is just missing some context. Even as it is corroborated by multiple linguists in the movie, there is a chance that it could be some sort of imperfect translation, as some phrases in Kryptonese might take on a more literal or harsh context when rephrased in English. There's also the chance that, thanks to dimensional travel and how long it took Kal-El to arrive on Earth, Jor-El and Lara just have an outdated view of humanity, as cavemen or people in the Middle Ages or some other time period altogether. I will admit, I do find that interpretation of it to be funny, but I also do not need that kind of read in order for the storyline to work for me. This whole storyline has gotten me thinking about the role of parents in a superhero's origin story, and the wide spectrum of nuance that can have. Whether those parents are dead, or a secret to the protagonist, or very much alive, it does a disservice to the protagonist for them to be completely spotless and two-dimensional people. A character having complex feelings about their parents not only gives them a conflict that they can't punch or superpower their way out of, but it is just true to how the overwhelming majority of real-life people feel about their parents. These characters can be a source of inspiration or nostalgia or homesickness, and the protagonist can personally view them in a positive or negative light, but they can and arguably should provide a sort of contrast for how the hero carries themselves and goes about the world.
We are what they grow beyond.
This can be in big or controversial ways, like abuse or the countless sins of my father storylines, but it can also be in small differences of opinion or methods or outlooks on the world. To me, even the best, healthiest, most wholesome examples of superhero parents still have the ability to create narrative tension, because the hero doesn't want to disappoint them or put them in danger or shake up the status quo with their superhero career. This is also the case for surrogate parents too, Aunt May and Uncle Ben, Alfred, and even the Kents. I think this is why I personally have never viewed Jor-El as a completely flawless character. He might have good intentions and a laundry list of ways that he's helped Krypton, but even at his best, most altruistic Marlon Brando portrayal, his outlook on life is only one of the puzzle pieces of why Kal-El is ultimately driven to become Superman. He can offer advice or guidance or outfit the Fortress of Solitude to put Kal-El through countless trials and tribulations, but even his methods of doing so can miss the emotional context of how Kal-El is going about the world as Clark Kent. Some Superman stories have taken this to an extreme. John Byrne's run of the comics attempted to make some sweeping changes to the Kryptonian side of Superman's past. Smallville created multiple seasons of narrative strife around the AI Jor-El from the Fortress of Solitude, and more recent comics brought Jor-El back from the dead as a straight-up antagonist who is responsible for aging up Jonathan Kent. But even those stories ultimately ended up back at the same point. Kal-El can be uniquely shaped in different specific ways by his own human and Kryptonian heritages, but his own heart and moral compass lead him to become the man and the hero that he ultimately is. This is something that the events of Superman tackle wholeheartedly, in a way that I find really compelling the more I think about it. Jonathan Kent's line of "your choices, your actions, that's what makes you who you really are," really is the thesis statement of a lot of the movie for me. And it's just something so cathartic and lovely to hear, both for me personally and for our current moment. It's not just the typical black and white nature versus nurture debate. Yes, we do get a showcase of how lovely and endearing the Kents are, but at no point is Clark choosing to be solely defined as human or Kryptonian. Honestly, across the entire movie, Clark chooses to not be defined by anyone's definition of him, outside of getting hilariously offended by the super shit hashtag. He continues to do good and save the day even after the controversy hits. He unabashedly tells Lois that he loves her even as their relationship appears to be straining, and he is unfazed by other characters calling him a loser and a wuss and not punk rock. Even his monologue about being, quote, as human as anyone, in my mind, is about the way that he chooses to go about the world, uniquely shaped by the different kinds of experiences that he has endured and the different kinds of love he has felt along the way. James is exceptional at those kinds of stories, from Peter Quill to Gamora Gamora and Nebula, to Rocket, to Bloodsport, to Peacemaker, and I appreciate that one of the most popular superheroes on the entire planet, one who has been incorrectly labeled as boring and a square for at least the past decade, was able to get this kind of arc too. This is why I, personally, am not in favor of retconning or undoing the L's message in a later project, unless that has been part of James's plan from the start. There's an opportunity to expand upon it more in the immediate future, which I'll get into in a second, but I would prefer to have it stick in some way, instead of later being revealed to have been manipulated by Lex or Brainiac or Zod or something else entirely. Brainiac can absolutely be the reason why his ship was damaged in transit from Krypton to Earth, but anything else just feels like bending the movie's existing canon to the point of breaking it. I also think, in a media landscape following The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and other less contentious retcons from installment to installment, that there is something so admirable in committing to a big swing like this. Another reason why I like the choice is it adds a whole new layer to Kara's arc and the ways that it'll play out in her Supergirl movie next year and beyond. I have been fascinated by the ways that people have characterized Kara over the years, as a plucky, naive teen, as a girl version of Clark, or as some sort of perfect girl boss. I think in the process, a lot of those characterizations have ignored what makes her unique. The years-long childhood that she had on Krypton, and the trauma and grief and anger that she is justified in feeling from having lost all of that. Her reaction to it can and should go far beyond politely playing second fiddle to Clark or using her heat vision every so often. She is well within her right to confront her trauma in whatever way makes sense for her. The Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic that the movie is based on illustrates that in spades, with her drinking and partying on Red Sun planets in an attempt to outrun that past and those feelings, until a quest for revenge makes her confront them head on. And if the movie captures even a fraction of that, including in some ways that I will not spoil here, then we are in for a treat. I've already been excited by the idea of DCU Kara having to go on that journey, and now even more so with the notion that her homeworld was complex and not completely flawless. Even if the rest of Krypton ends up being squeaky clean and it's just that her uncle had some weird beliefs, that alone would stick with a person in a way that'll be interesting to see addressed. What do you think of the Superman twist? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. Merch is available at the link in the description. As always, you can find me on social media at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, go read some comics.